Okay, this is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that I welcome Debbie from Iowa, who's come to share for about half an hour. With that, it's over to you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Young. My name is Debbie, and I'm an alcoholic. A couple of important things to share is that I have a sobriety date, which is very important to have, and it is the 9th of November of 2011. For that, I'm truly grateful. I have a sponsor. She knows where I am at physically, spiritually, and mentally, and I sponsor other women, so I carry this message. I am so grateful to you, Young, and the As Bill Sees It group. I've been joining you, I believe, for the last couple of years. And it just happened that I saw As Bill Sees It on a flyer, and my home group that I used to have here in Des Moines was As Bill Sees It. And so that's what caught my eye is like, yeah, and I love coming across the pond. And I'll share a little bit about that here in just a little bit, why that means so much to me. But you welcomed me with open arms, and I really heard a message of depth and weight in this meeting, and I'm really grateful for that. Let me begin a little bit. Some of you have been asking about Iowa, where we're at, because I had some resentments right away. Talk about that. You know, we're small but mighty, right? We are it's 7 a.m. here, so and thank goodness, Young, we're now on finally everybody's changed time now. That was really confusing. It's about 3 weeks of a lot of confusion, right? As I said before, we're as we were doing a little bit of chit chat before the meeting, is that we're about 5 hours away from Chicago. We border Minnesota, Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois, and a little bit of Wisconsin, I think. I'm not sure, but so that's where I'm at. This is not where I started my life or my journey, but this is where I now reside with my husband and my son. So I was actually born in California, and when I was 4 years old, we moved to Michigan, again, with Chicago in mind. That was only 60 miles from Chicago, about an hour by car. And it was there that, you know, when I think back, where I began to feel isolated, I began to feel not a part of. Now, I can tell you that many of my friends who are not alcoholics probably felt the same thing. You know, I started out as a moderate drinker. I moved to a heavy drinker, and I'm not so exactly sure when I moved to the real alcoholic. So I am a real alcoholic. So what does that mean? That means when I take a drink of alcohol, my body reacts differently than somebody that doesn't have the illness. That means that I have an allergy that kicks off, and I crave more. So that's only one part of my disease. The second part of my disease is that I have a mental obsession. So when I'm not drinking, I am obsessing over drinking. Because when I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was at the age of 41. And I came to the rooms, and I came in with a lot of shame. I came in just broken. I came in as an empty vessel. I had no idea what was wrong with me. And I truly believe it's so important for me as I carry the message, you know, to a sponsee or when I'm asked to speak at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I have a firm understanding of my disease and the solution. So I'm very grateful for having this opportunity, because I have a spiritual malady that only a spiritual solution can treat. And part of that is from the reading that I picked. You know, as I shared before, the meeting that I used to go to here in Des Moines was an As Bill Sees It meeting. We we took 2 years actually to go through As Bill Sees It. We went alphabetically by topics. One of the things that they did, the speaker would be asked to give a definition because words really matter. And so as I'm looking at the top of 286 and As Bill Sees It, the mastering of resentments. So when I looked up mastering, it requires patience, self-awareness, and willingness to work on myself, right? And another definition of the mastering is with time and effort, you can develop skills and mindset. So how true is that when I think about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous? And then resentments. I don't know if you have this or a dictionary is really important to me as I go through the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because the book was written in 1939. And, you know, it's important for me to understand what those words meant back then. So I'm reading the definition of resentment, to be angry about, to bear a grudge, to feel injured or insulted, or injured, sorry, injured or insulted, a feeling of indignation or anger aroused by something unjust, mean, or unworthy. To resent basically means to feel strongly again or relive. So my sponsor also talks about the resentment piece as being that replay. And then I came to you, and if you said to me, and you did, you said, you're full of resentments. I'm like, oh no, I'm not. I am not full of resentments, because I couldn't see it. I could not see it. So again, my sponsor says to me, I have a hunchback that I can't see, but she can see it. You know, I can't see that. You know, I don't know about you, as I never ever get those magic pixel pictures. You're supposed to look at them and then you're supposed to see an image of a shark or something. I never see that, you know. And so it was when I started to take the steps. Now, the sponsor I have today, I was 9 years sober, and the pandemic hit, which actually brought me to you, because I was seeking, I was searching, and I was in my disease. I was restless, I was irritable, and I was discontent. So I started a journey that has continued to this very day, in that I started a journey that has continued to this very day, where I'm a seeker, and I need to continue to be in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, to be inconvenienced, to grow, and I am so grateful for that. So let me get to the reading. So we began to see. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If you didn't realize, as this program of honesty, I did lose my train of thought. So pandemic hit, and I show up at an early riser meeting, and it's in Chicago. It's a women's meeting, 7 a.m. So I'm used to getting up at 7 a.m. here. And it was a woman that I continue to hear, not only in my head, but in my heart and in my soul. And it was at that point where I had a sponsor here in Des Moines, and I had outgrown my first sponsor, and I asked the second sponsor to sponsor me, and that is when my sobriety did a total 180, and the person that you would have experienced even 2.5, 3 years ago wouldn't be the person that's sitting here today. So I picked that reading, Mastering Resentments, because it was the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th step for me that really helped me turn the corner. Remember, as I said before, I'm the one that can't see the shark in the picture, right? So I am 9 years sober, And my sponsor then says, we're going to start from the inside of the front cover. Debbie, I know you have 9 years of sobriety, and I said, please. And so we started on this adventure. I had no expectations that we would start anywhere in the book other than the inside of the front cover. And so we went through this journey, and then we get to the 4th step. And I say to my sponsor, oh, I know how this is going to end. And she says, no, you don't. You don't have any idea. Because I had these old ideas of the first 4 step that I had gone through. And I'm like, I got this. And whenever those words come out of my mouth, I've taken my will back. I'm playing God. And I have to allow the process, and I have to allow God to come in, that I see what I need to see. And as I was reading the reading, okay, so I was I don't know if you caught this as Jamie was reading this, but I'm like, wait a minute. There's some differences between page 86 as Bill sees it and the book on page 66, 67. So I love the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It has the solution to all my problems in it. And so I am in the book on any given day, many times a day. And so hearing this, I'm like, it's just not matching up. And I'm like, wait a minute, we are very, we're sticklers for not changing the first 164 pages. And so I thought, who did that? Who changed the first 164 pages? So I'm reading, so I go back and I'm reading on page IX of As Bill Sees It. And Bill W. writes, these are the chief sources from which the content was chosen for this volume, As Bill Sees It, because the quotations used were lifted out of their original context. It has been necessary in the interest of clarity to edit and sometimes rewrite a number of them. So that's why it sounds just a little bit different. So I'll start then with the reading, and I'll probably move then a little bit more to the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So we began to see that the world and its people had really dominated us. As I said before, when I came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I couldn't see that. I thought the world had harmed me. It was what they did. It was what they weren't doing. And that's what made me an alcoholic. But that's not true. And I explained why that is. Because I have a physical and a mental obsession. I have a twofold disease. One of the things, and it's not part of the As Bill Sees It, but it is part of page 66. It says, and like I just explained, to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. No kidding, right? And that was my first spiritual awakening. And when I realized that it wasn't them, it was me. Nobody had to change in order for me to get sober. And see, I thought that's what needed to happen. And then I'll read on that, it's plain to see that a life which includes deep resentments leads only to futility and unhappiness. And the paragraph goes on to tell us it can get much worse. It could kill us. Okay, it could be fatal, right? And why is that? That paragraph at very end tells me, because when I am harboring these resentments, I'm shutting myself off from the sunlight of the spirit. You see, it's not the steps that keep me sober. Okay, the steps lead me to a spiritual experience where God can come in and the sunlight of spirit can come in. And I step down from playing God and let God finally play God in my life. Because when I step out of that, that is where I'm full of my disease, restless, irritable, discontent. And I can get there very easily without a drink. Because I don't know how many days, weeks, years, months you have. I might be a little bit further, maybe, from my first drink or my last drink, but I'm the same distance as everybody else here in this room to my next drink. And the book tells me I have a daily reprieve, which is contingent not on my spiritual condition, but on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. So I had to get busy because the book tells me it is a program of action. And so on page 66, continuing with the As Bill Sees It reading, we are now getting introduced to the fourth column of the fourth step. And for me, that is a life changer. So that fourth column is not only the fourth step, it's going to be the key to freedom to bondage, freedom from bondage. It's going to be my fifth step. It's going to be sixth step, seventh step, eighth step, ninth step. And when I'm learning in that fourth column of the fourth step, that is my design for living, because that's my 10th step, because I'm going to continue to watch for these resentments. And it's the 11th step when I retire at night. Okay. So it's such an important two pages, so important to my sobriety, right? All right. So we turn back to the list, right? And this is where the reading then begins. We began to see that the world and its people have really dominated us under that unhappy condition, as Bill sees it. So as the book says, in that state, okay, the wrongdoings of others fancied and real. And I love that is in there, because my resentments, my fourth step, my fourth column, does show that people had harmed me, but that's not the point. It's not about them. It is about me. So I get to take a look at that. And there are certainly situations where I've made worse because I fanned it, I flamed it, I made it bigger. I was consumed by that. And so now I begin this process, this soul surgery, if you will, to take a look at that, to turn back to the list, the first column, second column, third column. Now I'm going to write the fourth column. Okay. And we're going to look at it at a totally different angle. This was very difficult for me. I am 9 years sober. It's that picture that I can't see the shark, and I get upset because I'm just stalled, because I'm like, I should know all the answers, right? Self-knowledge avails me nothing. So I had a very patient sponsor that was very, took a lot of care to help me see what I couldn't see. And I'll tell you what, after that first 4 hours with her, I was exhausted. I still couldn't see it. And I got on my knees after that, because I was going to meet with her that next day. And I got on my knees and I gave my life and my will over to the care of God. And I prayed, God, help me see what I need to see. Help me experience what I need to experience. And part of what we do is I wrote a third step prayer, and I got on my knees and I went back to that prayer, because see, if I'm having difficulty with a step, I go back to the one prior to it. And so on that next morning, I know my sponsor probably thought that, it was going to be another 4 hours of woe is Debbie, right? But I showed up. God helped me show up so much differently. And I was ready to be free. How free do I want to be? And I'm 9 years sober, and I'm having an experience like I've never had before. Because, and I'll read on, I began to see that the world and its people really dominated me, really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, as I had read before, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. So how could we escape? And that's the good news. There is a solution. So we saw that those resentments must be mastered. as I said before, it's going to require patience. It's going to require a whole lot of self-awareness. And I'm going to have to look at things that's going to be very difficult to take a look at, but so important. And then the willingness is key. Without the willingness, I have nothing. So we could not wish them away, any more than alcohol. And now I'm reading on in the book, and also as Bill sees it. So this was our course, clear-cut directions of what to do. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, though we did not like their symptoms. That's column 2. And the way they disturbed us, that's column 3, right? They, like ourselves, were sick too, right? I start to see them as God's kids, right? And then I have very clear-cut directions what to do. And this is a prayer. Whenever there's a word ask in the book, it's a prayer. And we ask God to help us show. And I have show underlined, highlighted, bracketed, because show is an action, right? I'm just not praying for them, right? I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them by my actions, tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. So now I get to start seeing them as a human being, as somebody who's sick. They may not be an alcoholic, but I am the lucky one that I have a program. I doubt that they have a sponsor that they can call and pass things by, have a meeting they can fly across the pond in the UK and meet with friends and talk about a solution. And then reading on, when a person offended, we said to ourselves, and this is what we call our sick man's prayer, right? This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And we say here in the rooms here in Des Moines, bless them, change me. Sometimes I get that mixed up. I'm like, bless me, change them. But that's not how that goes, because it's not all about me. And the next paragraph, and I actually love how Bill changed a little bit of first 164 pages in the as Bill sees it, because on 286, as Bill sees it, he has the word today, because I live in the 4th dimension. And guess what the 4th dimension is? It's time. It's right here and it's right now. Okay. God lives in the now. And so today, we avoid retaliation or argument. We cannot treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God, not Debbie, God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view in each and every one. Because you see, I have to live in the right here and the right now, because when I live in the past, I'm going to miss out on today. And if I'm future tripping, I'm going to miss out on today. Because, and I'm reminded that this is not a Help Debbie program. This is not a self-help program. It is a help others program. And if I don't have my head up, okay, looking around how I can get out of self, because self-centeredness, that is the root of my problems, right? It does tell us that in the book. And here I thought, coming to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, my problem was alcohol. It's not my problem, because you see, when I came to the rooms a little over 11 years ago, you took the alcohol away, but things got worse because I didn't have a solution yet. So the good news is that alcohol is not the problem. Actually, it was my solution. It was not what it did to me. It was what it did for me. And actually, alcohol was my higher power. So now I come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I get a sponsor and I get busy. I go through the book, I take the action, and then after having had a spiritual experience, maybe experiment too, as a result of these steps, guess what I get to do? I get to turn around and I get to carry the message to another suffering alcoholic. So, and it may be through sponsorship. I am so blessed. I have women in my life that I'm allowed to sponsor. And it is true. It is the one thing, intensive work with another alcoholic. It works. It's going to keep me, not them. I have 100% track record on sponsorship. I'm still sober. And I love the women that allow me to carry the message and the lesson that I learned from them, and now I get to carry this fifth step experience to them so they can be free. They can see those resentments that they were weighed down with, and I am so grateful for that, and again, I enjoy coming to this meeting every single Sunday. And, I started off with a little bit about who I am and, where I live. One of the things that I did come to Iowa to go to school a couple of years ago, well, many years ago. I was a German political science major. As part of that, I spent a considerable amount of time living in Germany, actually in Bonn, and then I lived in Berlin for 3 years, from 91 to 94. And it wasn't until I was 2 years sober that I realized that my sobriety date, and this is exactly why I say it this way, and Tobias will understand, that I say the 9th of November, 2011, because that's how the Germans would say it. The 9th of November, 2011 is the fall of the Berlin Wall. If you're going to be an alcoholic, we love drama. So, I'm going to pick a big date like that. And it wasn't until I was 2 years sober that I realized, okay. So I don't know if you can see the picture. You may not be able to, but there's a picture that is behind me. It is a picture of the Berlin Wall. And on the top, it reads, I got to look at it here. Freedom comes from within. Freedom comes from within, unless there's a wall. And for me, that wall is my disease. Alcoholism is my wall. And so that wall has now come down, and I can live a free woman. Young, I am so grateful to you. I am so grateful too, as you carry the message. You'll share hopefully a little bit about the WhatsApp, the flyers that you share. You've just opened my world, and I just really thank you for that. And with that, I don't know where I'm at with time, but God is saying you're done, Debbie. So I'm excited to hear what all of you have to say. So with that, I will pass.